first in the swaying crowd, changed as it regarded me, an immense surprise, then a sort of wonder, and then some light as of a sudden daring purpose appeared, luminous as with a sort of devilry. I said nothing to Monsieur Jonquel, but I followed him to the Maison Blanche with a certain sense of interest. I would find that face. Easily I should find her, was the belief I held, and easily I found her was the fact that followed. Monsieur Jonquel had departed on the Brussels road, and I sat over my breakfast in the dining-room that looks out on the long narrow street that runs landward through the city of Ostend from the Digne de Mer. It is a cobbled, paved street of shops and little markets, and there was a busy moving of peasant figures in it, baggy-trousered fishermen, shuffling in their wooden shoes, and Flanders women in their native dress, picturesque and vivid. I watched the mass movement in the long street for some time before I got down to the details in it. Then I noticed a big sturdy dog, harnessed to a little cart, standing in the street below my window beside a small grocer's shop. I got my hat and stick and sauntered out. It was a heavenly day, with a soft air from the Channel and a brilliant sun. As I came out, the door of the grocer's shop opened, and the girl I was setting out to seek was there in the sun before me. She looked like a heavenly doll in her peasant dress. She smiled when she saw me, the corners of her mouth dimpling, and she spoke to me in a queer, lisping sort of foreign English. "Monsieur is an American." "Yes." "How nice." The sympathy, the frank admiration in the words were adorable. I felt before her smile in that moment that no gift of God could equal being an American. "You came last night from Paris, with the father." She held up the warning finger of a little white doubled hand. "I saw. Does the father perhaps observe us?" I laughed and added the explanation. The man was not my father. He was Monsieur Jonquel, the prefect of police of Paris, and he did not perhaps observe us. He had gone on to Brussels. She was glad he had gone on. Why did I, so nice, travel about with a prefect of police? I explained that he was concerned with some affair of his trade in Paris that took him on to Brussels. I came to idle and amuse myself in Ostend. She looked about her in the street with a troubled air. Leopold, her dog, that drew the cart, was getting old, and like a man in years would have his way. He was all right on the great road, but he was quarrelsome in a crowded street. She had been waiting for the people to finish their morning affairs and leave her an empty way for him, but the street grew only the more densely crowded, and she must go. Would I help her to the great road? I would have helped her to the world's end, and on either side, at the dog's muzzle, we threaded our way carefully through the long street, across the environs of Ostend, to the wide road that runs behind the sand dunes, through the flat fields to the north. She prattled like a child at every step, with all the simplicity and curious interest of a child. 1,000 questions that trod upon one another's heels, and hardly waited for an answer, like some friendly tot by a peasant's fireside, who asks about one's intimate and reserved affairs, and discloses in return the names and habits of the barn-fowl. When we reached the great road, she tucked herself into the tiny cart and bade me adieu, and before I could realize what had happened, she was gone. She smiled back at me and called something which I did not hear. The dog hurried, and the tiny cart drew away rapidly on the long road towards the north. It was all so like a fairy story that I remained motionless on the road. I returned to the Maison Blanche, but it was for luncheon only, and a brief reflection. What I would do was already determined. I would search that road to the north. I set out on foot. One has more leisure to observe when one goes alone with a stick in one's hand. I found fields about me, separated by wide ditches. Then the thin line of a village extended along the road, and beyond that the road divided. The sun was half down the sky as I turned back. I was approaching the village when that fortune of events that seemed to attend me